Let's talk about Ohio State and the addition of Arthur Smith as their new offensive coordinator. If you look at Ohio State circles right now, I think there's a lot of mixed opinions about this addition. A lot of fans are not convinced of him as a viable replacement for Brian Hartline based on his recent output for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think there's a couple of points worth mentioning in his defense to that. Also worth noting, I think that there's a lot of Buckeye fans that are not satisfied with it just from the sheer perspective that Hartline is and always will be a Buckeye himself. So there's a lot of people that just don't like the fact that he's gone, but I want to look at a couple of points to the defense of Arthur Smith and why I actually think it's a really solid hire for Ohio State. First and foremost, I think we can all agree that the best and most effective Ohio State offenses in recent memory has been the ones where running the ball was a central focal point. When they had a really good and elite running game, that's when Ohio State's been at their best. And I think that under Ryan Day and Hartline specifically, I think that they gravitated more towards a pass-heavy system. And Arthur Smith is a very run-oriented play caller. Whether it was in Pittsburgh or with Tennessee, he knows how to run the ball, and he's good at it. He's effective at it. I think that translates well to what Ohio State is going to want to do in their system in order to establish an elite, consistent offensive scheme. What that also does in turn is that when you can run the ball effectively, it's going to open up your passing. They're going to pass the ball because it's Ohio State. They have a Heisman candidate quarterback and the best wide receiver in the nation. So they're going to throw the ball, right? But how do you be as unstoppable as possible? You're balanced. It's kind of like how Indiana was this year. They were balanced between run and pass. It was almost identical. They just knew how to do both. And I think that elite running game opens up the passing game even more. With that said, I want to go into some analytical, statistical bullet points with how he performed in both Pittsburgh and Tennessee in the defense of his hiring. This most recent season with a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, right? Clearly over the hill, clearly not the same Aaron Rodgers that we all grew up watching in Green Bay and competing for Super Bowls. They're 25th in yards. They were 15th in points. So they're middle of the pack in points, bottom half in yards. It's not shocking if you look at the playoff game between Pittsburgh and Houston. It was a lot of screens. He wasn't pushing the ball a lot. So that's not really on Arthur Smith as much, in my opinion. I think a lot of that is just Aaron Rodgers not physically being able to do a lot of the same stuff that we've seen him do in his career. So with an extremely old quarterback who's over the hill, 25th in yards, 15th in points, and before that, with two very mediocre to even bad quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, they were 23rd in yards and 16th in points. So basically identical, right? But you're playing with two quarterbacks that are just not reliable anymore. One was over the hill and old. The other one just is not an NFL starting quarterback in Justin Fields. I like the guy, but he's not a viable starter. So that to me is not, that does not indict Arthur Smith, in my opinion, because as the offensive coordinator, your job is to play call. For all we know, the play calling was perfectly fine, and he just didn't have the horses to execute it. These quarterbacks that he's had recently in Pittsburgh have not been it. With that said, you look at before Pittsburgh, when he's in Tennessee, in 2019, 12th in yards, 10th in points. That's perfect. That's good in my opinion. That's good in my purview. It's if you're either top 10 or top half in the league in both categories. And then 2020, in the year that they made the AFC Championship game, 2nd in yards, 4th in points. Now, what's the big caveat to that is that they had a game manager quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, but they had an elite running back with Derrick Henry. And they had a good elite wide receiver in A.J. Brown still at the time as well. So a big reason for Arthur Smith's lack of success recently has been because of a lack of personnel. That's the one thing that he's never going to hurt for at Ohio State is personnel. He's always going to have the horses to do what he wants to do. Bo Jackson's going to come back. He's going to be better as a sophomore running the ball. And they still have the best wide receiver in the nation. So they're going to be more balanced. I think that this is going to be a net positive move for Ohio State. It remains to be seen if he is truly a better college coordinator than Brian Hartline. Curious to see that. But I think that he will be a really solid addition. And, he's an NFL guy as well. So both your coordinators are NFL guys. This is going to be a really tough system to have to play against if you're playing Ohio State. And I think the one thing that would bother me if I was a Buckeye fan though is the fact that you're now in your third play caller in 3 years, and that has the potential to negatively affect your quarterback. Not to mention, is there going to be a divide in Arthur Smith's vision for the offense compared to Ryan Day's, etc.? There's things that are going to have to be sorted out sooner rather than later so that they don't miss a beat and so that he doesn't start off slow. I'm talking about. So we saw Ryan Day get more involved in the play calling this postseason, this most recent postseason, mostly due to the fact that Brian Hartline's attention and brain was in the clouds thinking about USF, and so I kind of understand it from that purview. Ryan Day being an offensive-minded coach in his own right, though, there's obviously the possibility that he could get more involved than he has to be. And that's obviously a potential issue. Worth noting, it's worth paying attention to, but I do think this is a solid hire for Ohio State. And, again, as a Michigan fan, I hate giving them credit for stuff, but real recognizes real, and Ohio State they're doing a very good job of putting together a necessary roster and putting together a good coaching staff as well. So that's my 2 cents there on the Arthur Smith edition as offensive coordinator for Ohio State. And tell me what you guys think down below. Let's have a conversation about it. And if you like the content, consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all that stuff. It's free. I really appreciate it. And with that said, see you in the next one.